superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud, and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited. We've just got a great guest today. Our guest is Tom Bassford. He's the CEO and founder of EquityVest, a regulated crowdfunding portal. And we're going to have an important discussion today. You don't want to miss this one, so stick around. Tom, welcome. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Devin. I'm pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate you making the time. Tell us about EquityVest. It seems to me you've got really a specific, precise mission serving the faith-based community. Tell us about that.
Well, it's it's a pragmatic mission, if you will, based out of my own past. So I pastored for a lot of years, and so my whole life has been in that particular space. And maybe about 20 years ago, I stepped out of the pulpit, and in large part because I was trying to figure out how we could do the good that we were trying to do through the mission type work that churches do, but create change such that people no longer needed our charitable efforts to sustain the kind of life that we were all hoping that we might be providing them through our charitable efforts. So, as you might imagine, little by little, as I went down that road with the not-for-profit that I started, it became more and more apparent to me that one piece that the faith community, the church world that I was a part of, had not really thought too deeply about was the way in which business could be mission, and that if we were helping people in the context of poverty, and oftentimes the work that churches do around charity is based on in areas of poverty. And so, I mean, little by little, this has been a 20-year iterative process in which we've moved more and more towards how do we help the church create sustainable solutions to the intractable problems that they're trying to reach through their charitable efforts. And so, when regulation crowdfunding became an option, it just seemed to me that, my goodness, I come out of the Protestant, Catholic, Christian world. I'm very familiar with that crowd, and it just seemed to me that crowd has done a lot of really good things through charitable efforts in the past. What if there was a way to mobilize that crowd to use some of the same passion and compassion through business type things to help people lift themselves out of poverty? So it just seemed to me that as far as a niche goes, that the faith-based world ought to have a crowdfunding portal that would seek to connect faith-driven entrepreneurs with faith-driven investors.
It's a brilliant strategy. I mean, it's such an important one, I think. As you think, Tom, about what you've got going today, I think you told me you've got 3 offerings on the site right now. Can you tell us a little bit about each one of them so we get a sense of the breadth and scope of what you like to see on the portal?
Yeah. So again, we made a conscious decision that we're not going to vet the offerings on our website based on some sort of a statement of faith or something like that. We weren't going to focus on a particular type of business. What we were going to focus on is saying to companies out there, look, we are trying to mobilize people who are motivated by their faith to make choices. And and so those are the kinds of investors that we're trying to drive to the website. And we're saying to issuers, look, what we want you to focus on, either implicitly or explicitly, and it's up to you really to decide that, your faith and the way or the role that that plays in the business that you're doing, and then to describe some other bottom line than just the financial that you're trying to accomplish. So we don't really. I mean, we have a few things that are prohibited. I mean, this is the church after all, so we're not trying to get into areas that are going to be controversial. Obviously, we're going to do stuff around pornography, tobacco, those kinds of things. We're going to do anything around politics and things like that. Um, that's not the point here. But we say to our issuers, look, you can be as implicit or explicit about your faith and the role that that plays in here. Just know that the people we're bringing to the website are coming because they're hoping that that you have some way of articulating the way in which you believe that your business can do one of three things: can help create a more free and virtuous society by the way that you treat all your stakeholders. It can extend the gospel as you understand it, and it can help lift people out of poverty.
Yeah, that's great. Can you do you have any examples of current or past offerings that you can tell us about some of the specifics?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for kind of pushing on that. One of the offerings that we have right now is an alternative to Uber and Lyft. And, you know, I've had a blast talking with people who have come to our website who see that we're trying to attract and mobilize and deploy the faith-driven community in this area. And to hear them say, you know what, I am, and they'll tell me, their church and the role that it plays. And in this particular case, the company's called Hum, and he has been driven by this gig economy that lots and lots of people are trying to make a living in. And in his opinion, the whole business model that is out there on the rideshare platform does not really take care of the driver. And so, what really drove him to do this was this compassion, this genuine interest that these drivers ought to have a way to turn their driving into their own little business. So, if you go out and look at it, you'll see that, man, oh man, the stuff that he's able to do to create a subscription based platform in which the drivers just pay a monthly subscription and keep all the tips and everything else involved in it. His genuine interest in reaching out to them. They've launched in Phoenix, and I talk to him every now and again, and he does a weekly Zoom call with all of his drivers, and trying to create this sense of family and so forth. So, there's a guy that meant something to him, and so he was going to take his business acumen and the research he had to see if he could create a company that would help them. We have another company out of California that works a lot with the faith-based community in creating affordable housing. They're a not-for-profit, and there's a lot of urban congregations that own land, and they have found a way to be able to work with those churches and redevelop that land for affordable housing that benefits the people within that community and people within those churches. I mean, that for us is just an absolute, that's an absolute win there. And part of our hope is that other faith-based communities around the country will look and see some of these things. So what are they doing through New Way Homes? Wow, that's cool. we could probably do that in Kansas City. We could do something like that, or there's something to be learned from what Sibley and his group is doing. Um, there's another one out there that is for the deaf community. It's called vSign, and so it's a streaming service. And here too is this gentleman who's got a passion um, for that community and wanted to be a part of setting up a streaming service um, for the deaf and the hard of hearing. One other company that's about to come on, and he's probably the most explicit, I would say, in what he's doing. It's a gentleman that is in the angling business, and he's done fly tying. And Jeff decided that what he wanted to do, and all of this, he comes out of a missionary background himself, and he wanted to create a supply chain and a distribution in the United States, but he wanted to work with some Christian-based organizations in Nepal, India, South Africa, and that were working with women that they were rescuing out of human trafficking. And so, working with these Christian-based ministries that are they work with intervention, getting women out of these situations, stabilizing them, and then he's able to give them gainful employment at 3 times the prevailing wage. And then, instead of trying to sell flies to Indians, which doesn't make sense, Jeff has got it distributed in Walmart and places like that. So, his story is very much, I care about human trafficking, so I'm going to build this business. I'm going to do the work, but I'm not going to take advantage of lower wages. I'm going to actually pay these women 3 times the prevailing wage, and they're going to create a market in the U.S. and it's starting to work. And so all of these things, then you can imagine as we go forward, and we're just getting started in this, but you can imagine as we go forward, we want to leverage these stories. We want to say to people, look, here are the ways in which these things could work. Here are the kinds of ideas that other people are doing, and we're open to all kinds of possibilities.
Well, that's great. It's exciting to see what you're doing, and I congratulate you on leaning into solving real problems. And you can see how each of these is addressing poverty in a different way, and it's inspiring. So thank you very much. Listen, everyone, we're here today with Tom Bassford. He's the CEO and founder of EquityVest, a crowdfunding portal for the Christian community, especially, and having a great conversation. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Tom about his superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
You can get in on the ground floor to help fix the climate crisis for as little as $100. Pause now to scan the QR code to get started, or visit s4g.biz/raisegreen. You can be a green at Raise Green.
Want to learn from the world's great change makers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the super crowd today. Superpowers4good.com.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal, to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with Tom Bassford, the CEO and founder of EquityVest, a regulated crowdfunding portal. We're going to shift gears now to talk to Tom about his superpower, so stick around. Tom, we're thrilled to have you here, and your career as a pastor and change agent, especially leveraging business, it's really inspiring, and we're grateful for the work that you're doing. As you reflect on the successes you've had in your career, what do you see as your superpower?
So, as you might imagine, um, a person gets into the pastorate because there's something within them that is driving them to connect at the spiritual level in ways that are, in so many ways, um, not tangible. I mean, I would argue that they're very reasonable, but they're not tangible the way, say, an MBA would be tangible, uh, markets and economies and all of those kinds of things. And so, obviously, that part has obviously driven me to look into this, the spiritual condition of people, to care about those kinds of things. But I would say the superpower within me has been the ability to bridge and connect uh, both those intangible things like the hereafter with the here and now. I think I think that oftentimes the church, and I come from a more evangelical background, so I'll speak of my own tribe in particular, especially in the evangelical world. We can be so concerned about the hereafter that we don't really we don't we don't take serious the here and now. We act as though the only thing God really cares about is the hereafter. And I would say that that's both an animating thing within me, but I think it's also a skill set that I've developed over the years, is in talking with and working with the faith-driven community to say, listen, if there is a God, and I certainly believe there is a God, but isn't it reasonable that if he created all of this, that it's not a throwaway, and that nobody's life is some throwaway that we can just forget about the physical, the emotional, the real world circumstances. So the message that I'm challenging my crowd to embrace wholeheartedly is that God cares as much about the here and now as he does the hereafter. Therefore, come on now, get up and put to good use and good work the resources he's given you for the good of others. And if we do that, we will be an apologetic, if you will, just because we're treating people the way we would want to be treated if the tables were turned. So, that's my niche. That's my crowd. That's the
Yeah.
message that gets me in trouble. But I love to. I mean, I have no problem sharing it and challenging my crowd
Yeah.
to the
It
reasonableness of
makes
that.
it makes perfect sense. It's a great talent, a great ability, and I can see exactly what you're talking about. As a person of faith, it's sometimes easy to get distracted by the hereafter and ignore the here and now. So I love that you've developed that expertise, that ability. Can you think of a specific example to illustrate a time when you brought these dynamics together to accomplish something you're proud of?
Well, honestly, I would say that EquityVest um, is a picture of that. I mean, there's been plenty of others that we've done as well, but you know, pastors don't go and start fintech kinds of things. That's not what you do. But um, I mean, I've been able to express it, defend it, explain it. I didn't. I didn't. I haven't left the clergy, or I haven't left the pastorate to do EquityVest. In fact, we are the only regulation crowdfunding portal that I know of that's owned by a not-for-profit. So we started EquityVest. It's owned by the parent company Significant Matters, which is that not-for-profit that I started. And most of the startup costs for EquityVest to this point have been paid by through program-related investments, donor-advised fund kinds of things, because we've gone back to the faith-based community and said, listen, you can use your donated dollars to set this thing up and create an economic engine that could launch thousands of businesses over the course of its lifetime, and it will not need your ongoing charitable dollars. Why wouldn't you invest in something like that? So, to me, EquityVest is, it's a quintessential example of what in the world does that have to do with church mission and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, I'll tell you, Deb, the cool thing that's going on out there is, and this is interesting, when I speak around the country, I have yet to run into, and I'm probably overstating this, but not by much. I have yet to run into a Christian business-minded man or woman that goes to church, that's a part of it, that doesn't get, I mean, they totally get what I'm doing. They totally get it. It makes total sense. And I can only point you to maybe 2 or 3 pastors, my own tribe, that get it. They don't get it. I have, they will get it eventually. And that in so doing, that pastors could actually unleash. Oh my, think about it. I mean, pastors have the ability to mobilize and deploy people by casting vision, by telling stories 52 weeks out of the year. I mean, geez, the modern missionary movement that grew out of William Carey some 200 years ago is a classic example of that. I believe that a similar kind of thing could happen in our day and age.
Yeah.
If pastors begin to see what a game changer it could be to mobilize human resources and otherwise.
As you think about this balance between hereafter and here and now, how would you suggest to other people that they develop that perspective to discover and sort of implement it in their life?
Well, so in the world that I run with, I have found that there are 2 different verses that kind of animate kind of the mission mindedness of churches. One is the Great Commission, which is go into all the world and make disciples. And then there are others who are kind of animated by the Great Commandment: love God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I believe both of those are obviously missional statements. But I've been arguing for a while now that the greater mission that could actually shape what you're talking about, your own attitude towards these things, is the golden rule. I mean, boil it down. It is, to me, it is the simplest way to answer the question, what should I do? And so if the golden rule is do unto others what you would have them do unto you. If I mean, and this is a true story. So, as I was working at one point in the Philippines with men and women in mud huts who had virtually nothing, and we could mobilize a vacation Bible school, and we could do some various things in the villages and that kind of stuff. But I stood back one day and said, Jimmy was the name of one gentleman whose daughter had malaria. And if I were Jimmy, what would I want? A vacation Bible school or the means to cure my daughter's malaria? And I knew the answer to it. So to me, it's about stepping back and saying, if the tables were turned, what would you want? Would you want somebody there just preaching to you about how to get to heaven? Which I'm okay with that. But is that what you want? Why can't we do both? I mean, and I believe that we can, and it becomes
sure.
So I got to throw a word out that gets me in trouble, but I mean, it's a phrase, and I say this to my tribe very often, and that is, we are more interested in benevolent narcissism, and that does not help. I mean, we pat ourselves on the back because we just did that. But what these what people need.
Okay, Tom, we got to wrap up here. Let's take 30 seconds, take 10 seconds. Tell us about how to find EquityVest on the internet and use it.
Come to www.equityvest.org, and you can read about us on the platform there. You can see all about who we are and get some of the about us.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We want to wish you every success in the great work that you continue to do. Hang in there.
Thank you very much.